Pinocchio. Once upon a time, in a quaint Italian village, there lived a kind and lonely woodcarver named Geppetto. He spent his days creating beautiful wooden toys and furniture, but his greatest wish was to have a child of his own. One day, he carved a puppet from a block of fine wood, shaping it with love and care. He named the puppet Pinocchio and placed it on his workbench. That night, as Geppetto lay in bed, he gazed at the twinkling stars and made a heartfelt wish. Starlight, star bright, first star I see tonight. I wish I may, I wish I might, have the wish I wish tonight, he whispered. His wish was simple. He wished for Pinocchio to become a real boy. In a magical moment, the blue fairy appeared in Geppetto's workshop. She waved her wand over Pinocchio, and to Geppetto's amazement, the puppet came to life. Pinocchio could move, talk, and think like a real boy, but he was still made of wood. The blue fairy spoke to Pinocchio. To become a real boy, you must prove yourself brave, truthful, and unselfish. If you do, you will be granted your heart's desire. The next morning, Geppetto was overjoyed to find Pinocchio alive. He sent him off to school, hoping that education would help him become a real boy. On the way to school, Pinocchio encountered a sly fox named Honest John and his accomplice, Gideon the cat. They convinced Pinocchio to skip school and join Stromboli's puppet show, promising fame and fortune. Pinocchio, eager for adventure, agreed and followed Honest John and Gideon. Stromboli, the puppet master, was delighted with Pinocchio's performance and locked him in a cage, planning to exploit him for profit. Pinocchio realized too late that he had been tricked. The blue fairy appeared and asked why he had not gone to school. Pinocchio lied, but with each lie, his nose grew longer. The blue fairy reminded him of the importance of honesty and helped him escape. Pinocchio returned to Geppetto, who forgave him and urged him to return to school. However, Pinocchio's troubles were far from over. He was soon led astray by another pair of scoundrels, the coachman and his henchmen. They lured Pinocchio and other boys to Pleasure Island, a place where they could indulge in all kinds of mischief, without consequence. At first, Pinocchio enjoyed the freedom and excitement of Pleasure Island, but soon, he and the other boys began to transform into donkeys. As a result of their bad behavior, terrified, Pinocchio managed to escape before the transformation was complete. But he was left with donkey ears and a tail as a reminder of his mistakes. Determined to make amends, Pinocchio set off to find Geppetto. He learned that Geppetto had gone searching for him, and had been swallowed by a giant whale named Monstro. With the help of Jiminy Cricket, his conscience, Pinocchio bravely dove into the ocean to rescue his father. Inside Monstro's belly, Pinocchio found Geppetto alive, but weak. They devised a plan to escape by making the whale sneeze. They gathered wood and set it on fire, creating smoke that irritated Monstro's throat. With a mighty sneeze, Monstro expelled them from his belly, but the force of the sneeze sent them crashing into the ocean. Pinocchio and Geppetto, exhausted from being caught in the sea, were washed ashore on a small island. Pinocchio dragged Geppetto safely to the beach, and the two were reunited. However, Pinocchio had expended a lot of energy saving Geppetto and was almost completely worn out. Geppetto held Pinocchio in his arms, tears streaming down his face. "You are a very brave boy, Pinocchio. Risking your life to save me was a very dangerous thing to do." Pinocchio, with a weak smile, whispered, "Father, I really want to be a real boy, and I promise I will never lie again." At that moment, the blue fairy appeared once more. She had been watching the touching scene and smiled. "Pinocchio, you have proven your true heart with your brave, truthful, and selfless actions. the fairy said, "It is time for your wish to come true." The fairy waved her wand, and Pinocchio was enveloped in light. His wooden body turned into warm flesh, and his fingers and toes began to move. Pinocchio had become a real human boy. Geppetto, tears of joy in his eyes, hugged Pinocchio tightly. "Now you are truly my son, Pinocchio. I am so proud of you." Pinocchio and Geppetto returned home. The villagers, hearing their story, were deeply moved. Pinocchio had finally become a real boy and began his new life. Geppetto was no longer alone, and Pinocchio was happy knowing he was loved. Pinocchio returned to school and studied diligently, setting a good example for other children. He no longer succumbed to temptations and lived honestly and bravely. All his adventures had greatly contributed to his growth and maturity. Geppetto and Pinocchio ran the wooden puppet shop together and lived happily. Their story spread among the villagers, and Pinocchio's courage and honesty were remembered for a long time. The Blue Fairy continued to watch over them, guiding Pinocchio to walk the right path. Pinocchio, now a real boy, lived a new life with Geppetto, bringing great happiness to each other. Thus, Pinocchio became a real human boy and lived happily ever after with Geppetto. This story was passed down as a lesson on the dangers of lying and the importance of honesty, reaching many people.